Hi, everyone. You are now tuning in to Conversations with Filmmakers podcast. We present our final discussion with our special guest, Impact Producer Naeema Torres. We hope you enjoy part 2 of our discussion. Thank you for joining us today.
As long as you're willing to learn and you're open to it. I think a lot of people fall on the vine when they're not open to that, right?
Mhm.
They're not open to pausing and ingesting knowledge. They think they know everything, right? Like, you know how they say sometimes as you get further in your career, you're kind of set in your ways. And there's so
Yes.
many examples of that and
Yes.
people that I've met, and I'm just like, it would take me too long to change you, right? I don't
Yes.
have the time to overhaul your thought process or your emotional intelligence about this subject, right?
I
It
got stories for days about that.
you get what I'm
Not
saying?
kidding.
Look, that'll be when Naima comes back again. We'll take a deeper dive into, you know, but to pivot a little bit, I just wanted to ask you, when was that pivotal moment for you? And I think you've given somewhat of an example that you knew you had made it in this industry from aspiring to a professional, you know? Could you give an example of like that moment per se where, you felt like, wow, these people are taking me serious? I know, I think a part of the moment, and me and you spoke privately about it, so I'm not going to bring it up because it might not be the same, but um, yeah, I would love to know. Like, when do you feel like you went from aspiring to that professional?
Well, I think the example I just gave where my name was dropped for, a seasoned filmmaker to reach out to me during a webinar, like in a Zoom little like private chat, like, hey, what's your email? I'm supposed to contact you. And I was like, oh, actually, it was both the filmmakers who did it, which was funny to me. Both the filmmakers. I ended up working with, one of the projects, and not the other one, but I was like, "Oh, where are these people getting my name? Like, what is
Yeah,
happening?" And um, so I think honestly it was probably last year.
really?
When yeah, like I was like, wow, okay, this person, like my name is getting around, and that's nice. And I don't, again, I'm not like super popular, but I'm popular enough to, again, I've been freelancing 100%, for the last like three years, I think, like 3 years, and
Hmm.
everything's been word of mouth,
Hmm.
and so, or like I'm interested in something and it doesn't feel like an interview, it's like a conversation to see if we're a good fit. Because like, yeah, I want to work with you. Can we work together? And those are the conversations I've moved on to having, as opposed to feeling like I have to prove to someone that I'm
Hmm.
worthy of this. It's more of like I almost feel like equal. I don't want to say equal footing, but it's more like, yeah, can we be a part, like, can we work together? Like, that's what
Hmm.
these conversations are, as opposed to the typical interview process, I guess, of like, and what's your experience here? And what's your experience here? It's like, no, I know you're experienced, right? I want to see though, will we align in other ways?
Hmm.
And I think I started processing that about a year ago, like
Mm.
fully being like, oh, okay. You know, um,
So
as far
not
as
you being a professor, not you like all these projects you
well,
worked on. Well, I
no,
will say
like that's not
personally, and I don't think you remember it, but you were going for a gig and the woman came back to you in a panic because she's like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize who you were.
that
I'm
was
so
last year. That was another
that was
project. That was last year.
okay,
That was
okay,
last
okay, okay." So first of all, we get lost in time. So I thought that was like years ago, and I'm like, I thought that was the moment, like you were,
Well, that's because I think it was the beginning of last year, and I think when we were talking, it was like happening and like live, and this has been like,
oh yeah,
yeah, like so. I think, but yeah, that was last year when that happened too. Yeah, yeah, and I was like,
wow.
oh,
I don't know
okay.
why I thought that was 2 years ago.
It
You know,
must be my confidence of how I float through the world, making it seem like I have everything all together when I do.
nah.
It
But I
was
think that
definitely
goes
last
back
year.
to the learning, always learning, right?
Mhm.
Because I think for me, it was actually, I'm still in that process of still considering myself aspiring. even though I've been in this industry for a long time doing like the screenwriting and all that. And of course, would love to be a producer, but I'm thinking I'm leaning more to story producer or something. First of all, I'm horrible at math. So budget, I'd be like, child, no, give
Oh,
me
no,
this.
no. Just use your Excel sheets. Like, just use formulas. You don't need to be good at math. You just need to know formulas. That's it.
Listen, you just need to know the VLOOKUP, right? But
Yeah, that's it.
yeah,
Use programs. Use Gorilla. Use Movie Magic Budgeter. Like that's all you gotta do. Don't worry
yeah.
about adding yourself. Like get a calculator. That's what I do.
Now, a message from our sponsors. We are excited to bring you this world exclusive teaser from Bad Rabbit Pictures and Movie Pods. They are presenting Age of Prophecy, a sci fi fantasy podcast done in the style of the radio dramas of yesteryear. Coming soon to all streaming platforms. Visit www.moviepods.com or www.thenukechronicles.com for all the release dates. You won't want to miss this one. Your myths were born from our history. Let's check it out.
Life. A vile, messy sequence of events before we die. All designed for something beyond us. It has to be. Or else, what's the point? You don't know me, but I know you. I am responsible for your triumphs and miseries. I am Zira and Nilzor, and to truly understand your own story, you must know mine. Your myths were born from my history.
Now, an exciting message from our sponsors. When I decided to launch this podcast, I had the tools to find talent and market the show, but needed a skilled editor to bring it all to life. That's when I turned to Jacob Daly at redhawk.uk. His collaborative approach and swift revisions transformed my vision into reality. redhawk.uk, your one-stop solution for creative content services. Reach out to them. Hi there, and welcome back to Conversations with Filmmakers podcast.
So what would you say, because I'm going to say worst and best.
Okay.
So what was one of the worst projects you ever worked on? You don't have to drop names, like I said, but the worst project and why, because that's another thing. Everybody has that personal reason on why that engagement just really isn't there. And you do have to sometimes walk away. And I think that is what is very important. We both know some people that did not walk away, and it's like that nightmare scenario that actually hurt their career versus helping it, right?
Yeah.
So that is where that question stems from.
Yeah, I mean, I can instantly think of I think so. I was working as a producer, one of the producers on a feature-length documentary a couple years ago. And it was high profile in terms of like already kind of had broadcast deal,
Mhm.
you know, entities that were involved, are high profile. So I'll say that. And the director was not I just did not think he was doing his job as a director.
Mhm.
And so it was more about like their interpersonal skills
Mhm.
with crew and also with participants. And, with documentary, you're dealing with real people, like real people, like they're not actors, right? They're not professionals in this industry. They're like people who run stores or just live their lives. And you have to have a certain code of ethics, in how you talk to people, how you relate to them. And I think the director struggled with connecting with the very community that they were supposed to be filming. And a lot of it fell on me and the other producer, to the point where participants didn't want to film if one of us producers weren't there, because they had no connection to this particular director. And things ended up really bad because their management style, they're supposed to be managing things. They're the director, their vision. And I think ultimately they didn't know what they wanted this film to be. And they were trying to rely on their producers beyond the scope of our producing work. And so that caused issues. But then ultimately, the treatment of participants is what made me leave the project. And because, like I said, documentary, you're dealing with real people. And we were working in a vulnerable community during the pandemic, before vaccines had rolled out. So this community also had the pandemic had devastated the community. So you needed to have some, knowledge, some care. And the director did not seem to be able to do that very well. And also just like couldn't work with the producers very well. So that was like a treacherous 9 months, to be honest, because I stayed on the project because I cared about the subject, I cared about the community, and me and the other producer, funny enough, because of our experience, we're like best friends now. Like literally, she's at my house. Like, yeah, we're very close friends. We talk almost every day, like, texting or whatever. Because we were already kind of familiar with each other before, but again, like, I guess trauma bonded, I don't know. But,
which is right.
That was probably, the worst project, just because like, that wasn't managed well. And then the director was very much like, when I tried to call them out, like, I've confronted them about their behavior. So this wasn't happening in silence. Like, this was, hey, this isn't working. Hey, we don't like the way these things are, or hey, and we were met with like, I've been a director for 30 years. And it's like, yeah, you're still not doing a good job, like, so.
It goes back to that, what I mentioned earlier about being stuck in your ways and like not, you can't brute force everything, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I can understand.
And other people also come to find out through this person's 30-year career has had issues. So it wasn't an isolated incident, and not that I thought it was, right? And
but still,
looking into it and finding out there's a lot of harm in the community from this person, and this person continues to work, is like very frustrating, because our industry is not regulated, right? We're non-union or whatever. I mean, documentary is like completely unregulated, like there was an article that came out, I forgot, either might have been Variety or IndieWire, that was like an opinion piece about how documentary industry is really not regulated. And that's a space that I work in the most.
It's the wild, wild west.
It is. And so, I just wish people could be held accountable for a lot of their behaviors. And so that was like I think that was like the worst experience I've had thus far.
But it was good, like you mentioned, that you were able to walk away and you gained someone out of that you can actually work for or work with for future projects, which is always an excellent thing. Because I feel like in this community, that's what you need in media, is like-minded people that you don't feel like you're devaluing yourself.
Exactly. And she got something on my calendar too for late August, because she wants me to work on one of her. She wants to talk about impact producing for a couple of her projects that she got coming out. So there's something on the calendar.
Well, let me tell you, feel free to get her on the show with me. I would love to talk to whoever that you might want to recommend, because
she would be good to talk to.
It's nice just to find out the journey, because like I mentioned, a lot of producers, a lot of people don't know what producers actually do, and to me it's like, project management, a little bit of directing at times, budget. It's like it's a pretty much a piece of everything. So if you're that kind of person that loves variety and really challenging yourself to learn different things and do different things within a production, instead of maybe a segmented, like I'm just working on the camera or I'm just going to be a grip or just transportation. If you like that variety, then maybe producing could be it. So with that though, I wanted to ask, what was your favorite project? What was the best one? And then there's one more question after that, and then we're done, Joe.
That's tough because I mean, I'm working with pretty great people right now, honestly. So although it's really stressful and, talking about the life of a producer, I have two children, including a baby, 9 months old, who's napping right now.
Super mommy over there.
I've been fortunate right now to be very picky about my projects and choose ones that I with people that I want to work with. Like right now, I'm a producer on a podcast that's coming out on Audible next year, and I'm working with these two journalists, and it's been interesting, but I like the people I'm working with. Like I'm working with some really cool people, so it's hard to pinpoint something that's like my favorite project. I like the film that I did, a few years ago that came out like right before the pandemic started. It was a short documentary that was kind of personal essay documentary about about the 1811 slave revolt in Louisiana, where I spent a lot of time there. And I, again, developed a lot of friendships. You've met my DP that I frequently work with, Cammie.
Yes.
Her and I became really good friends through that project because we worked together on there. So yeah, I don't really have a favorite right now. I'm really enjoying the work I'm doing right now, the travel. I was in Cuba recently, well, in March, for documentary related things. And yeah, so I can't answer that fully, sorry, but I'm enjoying.
No, that's fine.
Life
it could be a gambit of things, there's nothing wrong with that, because what you're doing is engaging stuff that you actually like versus just doing it to just get by and maybe get the funding for, like we are revenue driven sometimes because we do need to survive out here, but it's also nice to see that you are willing to work on things that are speaking to your heart versus just anything that someone is throwing at you. And I'm pretty sure there are producers out there that will like just put their name on anything, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or like, an actor or something that will act in anything as long as there's money tied to it. So that's
I think that's okay. If you're in it for the money, I don't know about being a producer. Like maybe do something else. Because it's not like I'm not balling, I'm not making, I'm surviving, I'm fine. That's why I said I'm like lucky that my name gets passed around, because that's how I've been getting work, and I'm fine with that, but if you're looking to make a bunch of money as a producer, I mean, look at the man, I can't remember the name of it, but look at statistics and numbers and stuff around the actual producing career, and it's not as like lucrative as people think it is, like I guess portrayed on TV, where it's like this high powered executive or whatever, similar to actors. Like not every actor is going to win an Oscar, not every actor is going to be in a blockbuster, but if this is something you like doing that sustains you and you can find a way to sustain yourself, then absolutely continue doing it. But if you want to make money, maybe do other things too. I'll say that. I'm not discouraging anyone, but I'm just saying, like, the reality is out here, like,
well, can you do me a favor and mention what that the essay was, the name of your short film, where they might be able to find it, and also your foundation or business, I believe, that you said, like if you
yes.
Yeah, so in case someone wants to look you up, girl.
Well, I mean, you can look me up through my website. It's just my whole name.com, right? NaeemaJamilaTorres.com. That's where you can find my website. My film is not distributed anywhere. I do a lot of like private educational screenings for the film just because of the nature, where I saw my audience. I'll say that. Eventually,
but if they wanted to request it for an educational screening,
yeah, they can just request it on my website. Yeah.
Okay. And could you give us the name of it again?
Yes, my website is naeemajamilatorres.com. And you can send me an email through my website and ask to see the film or request it. And I'm happy to share it with folks. That's the best way to see it. As far as I was talking about the organization that I'm currently the interim executive director
Yes.
for is Mezcla Media Collective. So Mezcla, Mezcla, Spanish. And you can find us also on the website, mezclamediacollective.org. We're a nonprofit organization, small but mighty, and based out of Chicagoland. Yeah, again, we provide equity and resources for emerging filmmakers in Chicagoland, although we have members who not are only in Chicago, but I guess they're like able to take workshops virtually or whatever through the stuff that we offer. But yeah, those are the two things. And as far as like me, you know, I'm a freelancer. So, you know, if you want to talk to me about impact producing, you can also contact me through my website.
Yeah, through the website.
So
Yeah,
whatever,
exactly.
like whatever questions you have, you know, it may take me a while to respond to things, but I do respond eventually.
You are a mighty person of one, so we can't pull her all directions. But okay, so my final question to you would be, are there any projects or filmmakers that you would have loved to work on? So like if you had seen someone's content, it was just like, that is amazing and I wish I was a part of it, or know of something that's coming up, because I'm hopeful that this audience is very broad, and I tell people all the time, put it out there. You know, like I would love to work with Christopher Nolan. I would love to work on any Tom Cruise film that ever existed. I'm all
Yeah,
about
see, you're
action.
action. Yeah, you like
Yeah, I'm an action adventure, baby. If you're
I
watching
mean,
Marvel, all of you guys, please come on. Like,
I mean, I wish I could have worked on something like Abbott Elementary. I love that show so
yeah,
much, and I love the creator. I can't figure out why I'm blanking on her name. The creator of the show. She's a star of the show. She writes for the show as well.
yes,
I've been following her since she was at like BuzzFeed, I think. And so like
yeah.
to see her, I'm like, yes, she was on Black Lady Sketch Show for a season as well. So yeah, I would love to work with her one day. As far as directors, like big time people, I'd really have to think about that because I know so many like indie local people, even like some of my students that I've taught who have like such interesting projects. I'm like, man, I wish I could produce all of these things because y'all have such good ideas and I can envision all these things. So yeah, I can't think of anyone specific at the moment, but there's just
So
like
you're talking about Quinta Brunson.
yes.
Girl, I'm
That's
sorry, Quinta, if you're watching this, girl, listen, I had to look you up.
yeah,
Unfortunately,
please don't, please
my lane
also
is not comedy as much, so I don't watch a lot of comedy. It has to be like a referral of a referral, I
I
think.
love comedy. That
Yeah,
like
so
I don't
yeah.
do it, but I love like I like the Black Lady Sketch Show. I love South Side. It got canceled, but that's also a good show. I would love to work with the creators at some point there. Yeah, like there's just so many like little things that I don't do, right? But I'd be like, ooh, I would love to do that one day. And I feel like those people are the ones that I'm looking at. But yeah, as far as there's just so many like creative people that I encounter on a regular basis. And I'm like, even if they're not big, you know, or whatever that means, you know,
Yeah.
but to me, they're like someone I'm following and tracking. Like I have a number of people who I'm like, they're gonna blow up. They're gonna be so big. And I hope that like they my name comes across them one day or like I get to help them with something. So
Well,
yeah.
I would be very transparent when you know, I'm just closing this whole thing out. But I remember a time where this, I think it was a producer, writer, or whatever, had reached out about like, oh, he wanted to do some like animated TV series or whatever, and I had wrote like the bullet outline for him and like, you know, mapped out the first pilot episode and everything, and he had sent it to his entertainment lawyer, and the entertainment lawyer said, well, you need to find somebody that is known, that's a known writer to do this, right? He was like, well, unfortunately, Monty, we can't work together. And I said, well, I just want you to know one thing. you did not come out of the womb as a producer. You had somebody invest in you to bring you into that. So I get it, but if you love what I had done, you shouldn't allow somebody to then say, well, you need somebody known. It's like, you're known, hire all the other people that are known, but just understand someone had to give you that shot.
Yes,
And I think,
exactly.
yes.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's how I feel too. Yep, I feel similarly. There's a lot of like grant applications sometimes for documentaries where it's like emerging filmmaker, right? So they'll have that fund for you, but you have to have like a experienced producer, which I think is good, right? Because it's like
Mm-hmm.
it gives you the opportunity to, someone who's like not known to like apply for something and do
Mm-hmm.
something, and then have like experienced guidance with you. How you get it, that's the whole other barrier. But the point is, yes, like
Yeah.
I agree with that. Like, yeah, you didn't have all the skills when you were starting out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like they should have found another role for you or something. Like that's what I would have did. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
how can
Even
I
if they
bring this
brought on
person
another
in?
writer, it's not like to
Exactly.
it's not to like really complain about it, but for anyone watching, just understand when you have emerging people or up and coming or whatever, don't be so afraid, because again, it goes back to mentoring,
Yeah, you're
right?
right. You're right.
And
Yeah.
it's an ongoing thing. Like, you don't know who you're going to impact, and eventually we have to transition those skills, and it helps us expand as filmmakers. So, Naeema, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. And that is pretty much the end of our interview, pretty much. So I really appreciate you coming on for Conversations with Producers. Thank you, audience, for joining us. And I cannot wait to see you guys again for the next one.
Thank you. This was fun.
Yes. Okay, don't hang up. All right, let me just stop the video. Let me stop the recording.
You've just tuned into an episode of Conversations with Filmmakers podcast. We'd like to thank our guests for joining us and sharing their knowledge. This has been a production of Vonti Pictures, hosted by me, Vonti McCrae, a screenwriter and producer. We'd also like to thank Bad Rabbit Pictures for the animated content and creator of upcoming podcast Age of Prophecy, along with our sponsor, redhawk.uk, with all episodes being edited by Jacob Daly, director, producer, and a man of many talents. Come back next week as this saga continues for the Conversations with Filmmakers podcast.